When we were singing that song earlier this morning, by the way, my name is Matt. I'm the lead pastor here at LifeHouse. I was thinking about the power in the word yes and how terrifying it is. Because when we say yes to something, it ultimately means we're surrendering some kind of control. It's why when my kids were little, I'd have them put their hands on my face when I wanted to do something, and they would say, "Yes, Dad, yes, Dad." Well, I just want you to know, if you're newer to this whole faith thing, you're sitting around people that have decided to say yes to Jesus, which is terrifying because you're saying yes to something that, you're not totally sure about, you got questions about, but there's people around you that would say it's the best thing we've ever done. In fact, it's the best path forward. And this is basically why we believe this, because Jesus loved us, loved you so much, he gave his life on a cross to forgive us for our sins and rose from the dead that we would know he was who he said he was. That's why Jesus is our hero. I'm just inviting you to take a step towards yes today in some way, some form. Now, Jesus is our hero. We also have a whole bunch of other heroes around here that help the mission of our church. And we love to celebrate the heroes of our church, people that serve and are part of what we do. And I want to let you know about a young guy named Nathan Bidlack. And Nathan serves on our programming team, which means he's back in the production booth right now, helping all this happen. Whether you're online, you're in this room, the screens and the lights and the music and all the stuff he's helping make happen. Nathan showed up here a little over 2 years ago because he knew he needed some kind of change in his life. So some of you've shown up today because you know that something needs to move in a different direction. And he knew that faith needed to be part of that. So he showed up, and then he attended this conference that we go to every couple of years down in Atlanta, and a light came on just to who Jesus was and how much Jesus loved him. And so Nathan jumped into serving and being a part of things, and he contributes in so many ways. He wears so many hats, from cameras to switcher to making this place work, to doing emergency work, like when no one's around to help, he just jumps in all the time. And I'm so grateful for him. Not too long ago, we realized we needed a new platform in the back for our cameras because literally people were falling off of them and dying. No, that's not true. That's not true. But we needed something more sturdy and stable. And so he volunteered to do it and take care of all the materials. He's real handy. And I walked by on a Saturday afternoon, and sure enough, he was back there working his tail off. And then I came in the next morning on Sunday at 6:30, and he was just wrapping up. He worked all through the night to make sure that platform was there for you on a Sunday morning. And I thought two things. I'm so grateful for Nathan, and I'm so glad he's young because I can't stay up all night and work anymore. And when we asked him, why do you do it? He just said, I want to help people. I want to help people find faith in Jesus. Now I'm going to do something that Nathan it just hates, but I want to show you Nathan back in our production room right now. He's running the camera. Will you give it up for Nathan and just cheer him on and thank him for all he's doing? I promise you, he hates that. Okay, let's get the camera off him. He'll be thankful he's done with that for today. But we love to celebrate the heroes around here because what makes all this work is people pitching in and leaning in and giving their life to something bigger than just themselves. And I would just tell you, and maybe this is a new thought when it comes to church, the best way to experience our church, the best way to experience any church is to be involved, to be a part, to participate and make a difference. And if that is interesting to you at all and you're not involved in serving, next Sunday we're going to have this thing called Backstage Pass, where we give tours during the service of our different environments. Somebody just told me this morning, I didn't even know how big it was on the other side of this building. It's an amazing thing that happens with the kids and students on the other side of the building. We would love to invite you to be part of Backstage Pass next week. There's no obligation. You can just check things out. You can sign up for that by taking out your phone, getting on our app. On the homepage, it says Backstage Pass. Just click on it and fill it out. Or you can stop by guest services and just say, I want to participate in Backstage Pass. If you're online, there's a link to that. We love to see what God does and how he uses people to serve each other around here. And I'm just grateful for all of you because you decided to help to create a church for a guy like Nathan to come and engage and be a part. So I'm grateful for you.
just out to find the better part of me. I'm more than a bird, I'm more than a plane, I'm more than some pretty face beside a train, and it's not easy to be me. I wish that I could cry, fall upon my knees, find a way to lie about a home I never see. It may sound absurd, but don't be naive, 'cause even heroes have a right to bleed. I may be disturbed, but won't you concede, even heroes have the right to dream, and it's not easy to be me. Up and away, away from me, where it's alright. You can all sleep sound tonight. I'm not crazy or anything. I can't stand to fly. I'm not that naive. Men were meant to ride with clouds between their knees. I'm only a man in a silly red sheet, digging for kryptonite on this one-way street. Only a man in a funny red sheet, looking for a special place inside of me, inside of me, inside of me, yeah, inside of me, inside of me, yeah. I'm only a man in a funny red sheet. I'm only a man looking for a treat. I'm only a man in a funny red sheet, and it's not easy. Ooh. It's not easy to be me.
This morning, I want to talk to the men. In fact, this message is for the men, and not just for the fathers, but all the men in the room, online, the young men, the older men, and ladies. This is not really for you, but I hope this is helpful or interesting, or you can pray for all the men that need to be prayed for, or just text your friend right now. Whatever you want to do, I want to talk to all the men that are listening, because all of us as men have made, we've made a decision. And the decision is something that we're all pretty confident in. Most men are. We made a decision like, I know that this is right. And for the next 2 weeks leading into Father's Day, I want to talk about this decision that most of us have. Most of us will take this decision and impose it on our sons and our daughters. And what we create with this decision for our sons and our daughters are expectations. You create and I create as men an expectation for our daughters of what we should be, what they should be looking for, or what they should not be looking for. And same with young men. And how we define this is a huge thing, because all of us pursue, lean into, chase after as men what our idea or the idea of masculinity actually is. And masculinity is simply this, what it means to be a man, our picture of what it means to be a man. Our expectation, what we aim at and shoot for, that's a man thing to say, what we aim at and shoot for, because we like to shoot and aim at things, what our North Star is for being a man, how do we define it? And so I want to define it for us, and this is going to be real broad. There's lots of wiggle room in this definition, but it kind of gets us on track when it comes to masculinity. And masculinity, I'm going to suggest to you, is a set of attributes, behaviors, and roles generally associated with men and boys. And listen, the truth is you have a list and I have a list of behaviors, how we act, what we do, that say, yeah, that's what a man does. That's how a man lives his life. This is what a man is supposed to be. And you know what they are for you. And I know what they are for me. And I might say, I know what they are for you, and you should listen to me. And you would say the same thing. And we assume it's intuitive, and it just comes natural to know what a masculinity really is. But my question for all of us this morning is, are you sure you know? And are you sure you got it right? Because, and this might be where you push back this morning, somebody who's not you defined masculinity for you. And so did for me also. It was probably partly your family that did. This is what a man looks like. This is how a man acts. For some of you, it's culture defined it. You know, you thumb through social media, this is what a man is. In our country, it's defined in a certain way. Depending on where you are from the country, in the country, it's defined like you wouldn't say this. West Texas definition of masculinity probably is a little bit different than a New York definition of masculinity. Or maybe your father defined it for you, or your grandfather. And here's the idea. We were all handed a script of what masculinity looked like from our family or our town or the people we grew up around. In fact, for some of us, it felt like it was draped around us. Like my dad draped what masculinity is around. And Matt, now you wear it like a coat or a cloak. This is your script. And maybe you were told this. Maybe you told somebody this, son, this is what it's like to be a man. This is what it's like. And often your father told you what it's like to be a man, but maybe your dad wasn't around. And so your mom told you or defined what it was like to be a man. And possibly, not necessarily, but possibly, those could be two very different definitions. And whatever this was, if you were like me, your temperament, it just fit. It's just like, okay, I can do that, and I can be that. Physically, I can do that. I can act like that physically. When I'm interested, I can do that. How I present myself. And I rolled with it as a son that listened to his father every once in a while. But for some of you, you would be like, no, what I was told, what it was like to be a man, it just didn't fit. It didn't fit my temperament, how I carried myself, how I acted. Maybe for you, it worked really well, what your dad taught you, but it didn't work real well for your brother. And he grew up like always feeling like he was a failure, or he couldn't live up to his dad's expectations, or he couldn't live up to you as the older brother in your family, or maybe that's how you felt along the way. Maybe for you, no one ever really explained what it was like to be a man or how you should act, and so you never really knew. You didn't have clarity, so you were just always guessing, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And again, this is where you might push back, and that's okay. Just listen to me out, hear me out as we talk through this. Masculinity is a social and cultural construct, mostly. Most of our masculinity is from culture, and it's a construct. So is femininity along the way. And you know this, that every generation has their own twist or tweak on what masculinity is. And if you look out through history, it has changed over time. Now, to make my illustration, to make my point, I want to give you an illustration that's probably an over illustration, if you can say that from a stage like this. I want to talk to you about a military leader who was a genius. He was a political leader that was, brighter and stronger and more violent than maybe any other military political leader in history. He led the largest continental empire in medieval or modern history. I actually thought this was Rome, but it's not Rome. He led the largest landmass in history and controlled it and, determined which direction it would go by power and might. And he, this political leader, I'm not gonna tell you yet, had a view of masculinity that was dictated to him, that was given to him, that was cloaked over him. And one of his traits that he thought was masculine, or a way to live out masculinity, was this: to sire as many children as possible and by as many women as possible. in history. Can anyone guess who this political military leader is? Just say it out loud if you know. Anybody? Oh, smart people are sitting over here. Well, whoever you are, A+ for you guys. It was Genghis Khan, the ruler of the Mongol Empire. And this was what we know. It is believed to be that Genghis Khan had over 1,000+ children. Now, when geneticists, I'll get that word out, when geneticists, I can't say that, go back and they look at where Genghis Khan's Y chromosome, I know this is a weird thing to talk about in church, but when they determine where his Y chromosomes ended up, they found through data and research that about 8% of all men living in his region today are descendants of Genghis Khan. When you extrapolate that out, that simply means that 0.5% of the male population in the world has similar Y chromosomes as Genghis Khan. That equals about 16 million men that can say, I'm related to Genghis Khan and his ways and the way he saw the world. That means if you're already bored with this message and you're thinking about how to go into battle, swing a sword, and dominate everyone around you, you just might be a descendant of Genghis Khan. Congratulations, you're winning already. That's just for you. Now, here's what's interesting about this. If that's true about all his descendants, in Genghis Khan's day, that was not considered immoral, at least in his part of the world. Siring that many children, taking that many wives, and I emphasis the word taking, through force most of the time, women and wives and mothers to be. That was not viewed as immoral. That was viewed as this is what powerful kings do in that part of the world. That was in the 13th century. At the same time that was going on, the University of Paris was being formed. New world ways of thinking. The Magna Carta was beginning to being written. Can you imagine Genghis Khan on Father's Day today with 16 million kids around the world? I mean, the socks and the ties and the little batteries that you plug your phone into in your car so you can recharge, you'd have a pile of those. And remembering that all the stuff, he had so many kids. But one of his models for masculinity as the king in those days was sire as many children as possible by as many women as possible. Now, here's what I hope for you. I hope that you find this to be irresponsible living. I hope you define this as wrong living, disgusting living, disturbing, outside a moral boundary that we should live. But back then, it was what rich, powerful kings do. And why was it okay then? Because Genghis Khan was given a script, a cloak. It was horrible, it's disturbing, but it's what he was given in his culture and maybe by someone he respected. And we would say that's wrong. That's why our view of masculinity is a moral construct along the way. And all of our moral constructs along the way are, next slide, are cultural, whether it's in your family, in your town, or your country. They're learned and they're reinforced over and over and over. And I tell you that so you'll just be careful. Because you and I, we think this is what masculinity is. This is what it means to be a man. Be careful. Because we're also sometimes handed things that aren't what's best or true for us. And who's giving you your script? Who taught you what it was like to be a man? I'll tell you who taught me most in my life was my father. You probably have heard me talk about my dad quite a bit. I love my dad. I respected my dad. He's gone home to be with Jesus now. But my dad taught me some things about what it meant to be a man. I wanted to share them with you, but I thought I would call my sister up. My sister, who's older than I am, just so you all know. So Sarah, if you're watching, you are older. I'm the youngest child of our father, so I'm up on you. And I asked her the question, hey, what do you think Dad's definition of masculinity was? And I took what she said, I took what I thought, and I put them together, and I came up with 3 things to share with you. What was given to me, cloaked over me. The first one was men lead. Men lead. This was my script. My dad was a leader. He was a college president. I can remember him at graduation in front of all the students and all the audience, and he would lead, and he would say, Matt, Browns, we're leaders. We lead our families, and he did. He led our family. He led our family spiritually. He led us in the way he loved us. My mom was right there with him, but he led. He led at work. He led at our church, Brown's Lead. And it was so interesting. Whenever I saw my dad in a place where there wasn't much leadership, he would step in and lead. And he told me one time, even if you don't get a promotion, even if you don't get paid more, if you have an opportunity to lead, take it, because it will lead to something. And for me, that has benefited me in a lot of ways as a leader in my family and in our church. I'm super thankful for that. The other thing my dad handed me is what men do is they do the right thing. They do the right thing. Part of the reason my dad did the right thing over and over, and he was not perfect, but do the right thing was a motto for him, was partly because of his faith. It was also partly because his father didn't do the right thing often. His father was not responsible. His father often was not faithful to his mother. His father had addictions and didn't lead his family. And so I think my dad just thought, listen, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be something different. And he handed it to me, and he would say, Matt, I want you to do the right thing. And here's what I respected most about my father. My father was not good at saying the words that every son and daughter need to hear. It didn't come natural to him. My dad could be awkward with his words. But somewhere along the line, he learned that you need to tell your kids you love them. And so he would come in the room and he would look at us in the most awkward way and say, hey, I love you, I love you, I love you. And as I was talking to my sister the other day, you could hear her just get shaken by remembering my dad's love for us, that he verbalized even though it was hard. My dad did the right thing even though it was hard at times. When I was a young man about to get married, my dad sat me down. Maybe you've heard me say this before. And he said, I want you to forgive me, Matt. What do you want me to forgive you for, Dad? Whatever it is that you need to forgive me for. It made such an impression on me, and it was awkward and it was weird and I didn't know how to respond, but to this day, when I think about it, I think about the gift my dad gave me by doing the right thing and just saying, hey, I want you to forgive me for all the times I messed up as a dad. I didn't get it right or didn't do what I should have done. I want you to do the right thing. And again, in a lot of ways, that served me well. Where sometimes it was hard for me, that script was, I didn't always do the right thing. And so what do you do when you don't do the right thing? You know, how do you figure that out? So that was part of the script that was a little confusing to me. The last thing that my dad, not the last thing, but the last thing I'm talking about today is that he would say, hey, we win. Browns win. I heard that a lot growing up. Browns win. And you need to know from me, this fit my personality easily. Matt, there's no benefit in quitting. We don't quit, we win. We go as hard as we can, we work as hard as we can, and we get it done. Now, you need to know this, back in another lifetime when I was an athlete, this served me really well. As a leader, part of this whole thing is, hey, we want to do well, and I wouldn't say this out loud to anybody, but we want to win as a church. We want to move forward. We want to get it done. One of the gifts my dad gave me with this whole do the right thing and win is we don't quit. When I was a 7th grader, I was playing football and we were 0-7 and it was miserable. We lost every game. We got just the heck beat out of us every week. And one day it was practice on a Wednesday and my dad said, let's go to practice. And I'm like, I'm not going. Why? I've quit. And he sat me down and he said, listen, Browns don't quit in the middle of seasons. We never quit. Now, if you get to the end of the season and you don't want to ever play football again, that's fine. We don't quit in the middle of anything. And that taught me a lesson. We win, Matt. One way or another, we win. Now, here's where that went negative. I got so set on winning that at times, as a younger man, as an older man, I can just be a jerk. I can be a jerk in order to win. I can be a jerk to be right. I can be a jerk to tell you I'm smarter or stronger than you. In fact, one of my favorite things is when somebody teases me, and I don't realize this subconsciously, but if you tease me, this is what I think internally. Oh, we're gonna do the teasing thing. And then I tease, and then you walk away crying. That happens way, way too much. And I can hurt people because of the win thing, but it was a cloak that was draped over me. This is my dad, and this is me at about 5 years old. Isn't that an adorable little chubby-faced kid? That's great. And this was my dad in the 70s. I wanted to show this to y'all because he was a clean-cut guy, but apparently in the mid-70s, my mom talked him into this cheesy mustache and this lot of hair on his head. He would hate this picture, but this is my dad. He was amazing. He was a college football player. He taught me so much of how to be who I am. And my script was pretty good, but not all of it. Not all of it was perfect. And I picked stuff up from him, our family, and culture, and I fit in most of the time. But many of you didn't fit in what was given to you. And so here's my question for the men in the room and online. What were you given? What was it? External things like sports and grades and scholarships and income? This is what you do. This is the external things. If you do this, you'll be a man. What was yours? More moral things and character things? Maybe for you, it was a combination of external and internal moral things, which is often the healthiest path. But what was your script, men? What was given to you along the way? Or was it given to you and you couldn't live it out and you couldn't be what your dad or your family or culture said, and to use a man term, you just decided to throw in the towel? I'm just giving up, like in Simon and Garfunkel's famous song, The Boxer and the Fighter. The boxer, when he's bloodied and beaten, he quits. Maybe that was you. It's just too hard. I couldn't be what they wanted me to be. Or are you the fighter? That when you got bloodied, you just leaned in harder and said, I'm gonna do this thing. And maybe some of you dislike the fighter because you just don't like that much alpha, and I get that. Or maybe you're the alpha and you look down at people that aren't fighters because it doesn't fit your script. Which is it for you? Did you fit in? Did you not fit in? And here's the thing, with all that of what should be or we're supposed to be, you all show up at LifeHouse, at least many of you do, consistently. And you hear me or someone else here say this, in light of what the region, the family, the culture says you're supposed to be as a man, and I say, or someone says, follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. And I know there's a group of you, and I understand this, and I get this, that you're like, all right, Matt, we kind of like this church, and every once in a while you say something that's outrageous enough that entertains us, the music's good, but follow Jesus, be like Jesus, sweet, passive Jesus. We like the church, but church people are weak. And I want to be a man like we're supposed to be men, like I was taught to be. And you're like, follow Jesus. And by the way, if I follow Jesus, Matt, there's a standard that comes with that I'm supposed to live up to or live in and follow. Then I got to say no to me on some stuff. And what I would rather do than follow Jesus, well, how about I just be more like King David? I'd like King David. King David, as a young man, killed bears. As a young man, he slayed Goliath with a sling and then took Goliath's own sword and cut his head up. I need more King David in my life, not Jesus. King David was a guy that had some mighty men, and King David would come off the field of battle against his enemies, covered in the blood of his enemies. I need more of that. And maybe some of you feel that way. I get that. Or it's not King David that I want to be like. I want to be more like Revelation Jesus. Do you know about Revelation Jesus? Revelation Jesus is portrayed differently than Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John Jesus. Revelation Jesus doesn't turn his other cheek. Revelation Jesus shows up on a white horse, covered in blood, with a sword coming out of his mouth, and you're like, yeah, I want some of that. Can you bring some stories about Revelation Jesus, not gentle Jesus? And when you go to the end, the book of Revelation, which actually happens, by the way, it's at the end of all things, when everything is made right and it's over as we know it. This is what Revelation Jesus tells us. This is why some of us like to read it. The rest were killed with a sword coming out of the mouth of the rider, talking about Jesus, on the horse, and all the birds gorged themselves on their flesh. This is historically known as the Supper of God, a battlefield with the dead enemies of Jesus strewn across it. When you read it, you can smell it, can't you? You can smell it. And you want me to follow Jesus that died on a cross? I like this Jesus better. And if we read the story of the crucifixion of Jesus, Luke tells us the people stood watching, and the rulers sneered at him, and they said, he saved others, let him save himself if he is God's Messiah, the chosen one. They mock him. The soldiers also came up and they mocked him. You know, they swore at him. Here's vulnerable Jesus. He's dying on a cross, and they're swearing at Jesus. They're probably making fun of his mama, saying terrible things about his family, stuff that would provoke you to do just unbelievable stuff. This is what's happening. And they mocked him, and they said, if you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. Now pause right there. If many of us men, and ladies, you're probably way better than this, but if many of us men could rewrite this part of the story, Jesus is being crucified, we would probably write it, and this may feel a little irreligious or irrelevant, we would probably ourselves write it this way. They mocked Jesus. We would write, with that, Jesus looked towards heaven and said, Father, remember, if we made the story up ourselves, Father, forgive me for what I'm about to do to them. And we would pull out a sword and say, because they're the disease and I'm the cure. Sylvester Stallone, the 1980s. You guys remember that old movie? They're the disease and I'm the cure. And we would say, that's the Jesus we want to talk about. And then we'd write, then he slowly closed his palms over the nails that held him to the cross, and he ripped them free. Come on, give me some more of that. And all the wives and ladies in the room, their eyes are rolling like, oh my gosh, men are such idiots. I know, men, come on, hang with me. You know you feel this. And stepping down, he smote the Roman guard with the very nails that once held him. And on that day, there was a great slaughter of the enemies of God, and it's Braveheart, Mel Gibson, Blueface, and we are winning. And it cost us everything, but it's our freedom. We feel that, don't we? You know why this is appealing to men in the church? Because it sells. This is what men's men, this is how we think sometimes. And some of us have adopted this. I lean really in easily to Revelation Jesus, just so you know. I can lean in easily into let's take back what is owed to us. But at the same time, many of you, and I'm trying to, have adopted the life of Jesus that he lived out on this planet. It's not this. It's turn the other cheek. It's love your enemies. It's protect women, not take advantage. It's protect children at all cost, and children are never, ever, ever, ever to be hurt for, disgusting reasons in this world. It's not torch the Roman soldiers, it's give your life for Roman soldiers. That's what we're faced with Jesus. And here's the question. Between King David, Revelation Jesus, and Jesus on the cross, what do we do, men? Who do we follow? How do we figure this out? I mean, I like Revelation Jesus with a sword coming out of his mouth and, blood. I love that. And that maybe for you, that's the script that your dad gave you. Maybe it's the script that culture gave you. How do we decide how to define what it means to be a man? And this is huge. You know why it's huge? Because your sons are going to watch someday. Maybe they already have watched, and you taught them to. And you're also showing your daughters what's expected out of a man. And the truth is, we really want what's best for our daughters. And it's not enough just to say, man up, and man up. In fact, there's this interesting movement happening in the West in churches right now where men are reclaiming, the sword and their manhood. And I lean into this so easy, I'm tempted to go here all the time. In fact, my kids were at a church in another part of the country about a month ago, and trying to help men understand what it meant to be a man, they took the movie Braveheart and they showed on the screens to the whole audience, it's a huge church, all the violent scenes in Braveheart. And the pastor came out like, this is what we do. It's Revelation Jesus, and we're leaning back into our manhood. And I say that because it's easy for me to be that guy. It comes natural. It was part of my script growing up. But what do? Who's right? Is it King David? Is it Revelation Jesus? Can I suggest to you that maybe the way forward is to follow Jesus of Nazareth? Know that Revelation Jesus will happen someday. King David happened years and years and years ago, but Jesus pointed the way for us to live. Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus. It's why Peter, who was all about being a manly man, he in the end laid down his life. He surrendered everything to his king and then gave his life like Jesus did for the world so the gospel would be preached. Jesus took Peter and all his bravado and all of this is who I am, and I'm going to cut off ears and we're going to dominate, and he laid his life down, which is better than King David ever did. You see, Jesus of Nazareth was known partly at some points as the Lion of Judah. You may not know this. This was one of his names. And he was a lion. And it's really important to remember. You know what that meant? He was tougher than Roman steel. That the nails that held him to the cross for a small period of time could not hold him there forever. He was stronger than Roman wood. That cross that was constructed held him for a moment, but it did not keep him in its grips. He was stronger than Roman whips and Roman spears that pierced his side, and they caused him so much pain temporarily. He was fearless in the middle of it. In fact, Jesus would march to Jerusalem on his most important appointment of history. You have important appointments with clients and business people and coaches and sports teams. All of you have appointments that are really important. None of them will ever be as important as Jesus' appointment in Jerusalem with that cross that day. And yet while he marched there fearlessly, he would stop and heal blind people. He'd put children on his knee and say, protect these with your life. Don't let anyone hurt the least of these in any way, shape, or form. He was fearless. He was a lion. He faced death and he did not run. When most of you, or maybe all of you, would have ran, he did not run. He was no coward. He was a lion. And yet we also know him as the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. And in the lion, Jesus showed us the illustration of what a man is. And in the lamb, he showed us what the illustration of a man is. In these two, as they intersect, the lion and the lamb, he shows us what a man was intended to be in the beginning, before cultural things and family things and a broken world distorted it. Before all of our scripts got in the way, he showed us what it meant to be a masculine man. And you could be this if you're an alpha, and you could be this if you're not an alpha. It's why Jesus is said in John, Jesus said, and when I'm lifted up from the earth, I will draw all men to myself. Think about what this means for a normal leader, a conqueror. Lift me up. Give me everything I want. Jesus in this moment, you can read it for yourselves, is talking about being lifted up on a cross where he would die a humiliating death. This is the intent of what a man does when people are broken and they're lost and they need help. He's no meek king. He's no weak king. He's nothing but what a true man actually looked like. So back to the real story. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, save others, let him save himself. I love this thought of the people in power in this moment, the Roman guards or Roman soldiers. They're mocking him. This is what man's strength on earth, the script looks like. When you're in power, you just treat those that are weak terribly. This is not what winners do. This is what losers do. I'm gonna abuse you when you're already beaten down. He saved others, let him save himself. If he is God's Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers also came up and they mocked him. Again, they cursed him and his mom and said terrible things about him and said, if you're the king of the Jews, save yourself. And why wouldn't he save himself? Wouldn't a real man jump off the cross? Wouldn't a real man destroy his enemies? Wouldn't a real man defend himself in this moment? You see, Jesus wasn't thinking about himself in that moment. He was thinking about you. He's thinking about me. Jesus refused to save himself because if he had saved himself, he wouldn't have saved you. In this moment, Jesus literally is Superman. He forfeited his life to save the ones he loves. This is what men do. This is what masculinity looks like. His accusers were going nuts on him, and he just like, I'm giving everything, because if I don't, the world will be lost. You'll be lost. I'll be lost. We will be lost. And in that moment, Jesus is the lion and the lamb, and they intersected perfectly. Perfect masculinity on the cross is what it looks like. I'm not gonna be fearful. I'm not gonna run away. I'm gonna embrace the pain like a man does, and I'm gonna lay my life down like a man does. And remember, Jesus came as God in a body. He reined himself in so he could give his life for you. He literally limited himself so you and I could be saved. See, the battle for every man in the world is to say no to me so I can say yes to those around me. That's the battle. Daily control myself. It's often not some big heroic act, but daily I'm gonna control myself. And all the pleasures that I desire and all the things that I want and the power and the notoriety and all this, I'm gonna say no to that for the people around me, and I'm gonna give my life away. If you're a Jesus follower, this is the script. Now, my dad, as I mentioned, draped much of this over me. I'm just trying to figure out anything that's not this that my dad gave me, to take that out of my life and to follow Jesus' script. The Apostle Paul, who was another violent man. In fact, he leveraged all of his strength and power and notoriety for himself and what he thought was the cause, and then he ran into Jesus. And what was defined for masculinity for the Apostle Paul changed in knowing Jesus. His script was destroy all the Christians. Then he met Jesus. Then his script was, he's my guy for the rest of eternity. The Apostle Paul said this about Jesus, who being very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantages. Remember, Paul had great strength and he saw this. I'm not gonna use it for my own advantage, Jesus would say. And being found, next slide, in appearance as a man, he humbled himself. He humbled himself to be one of you and be one of me, to give everything as the Superman of God. In that moment, Jesus was the lion and the lamb. I wasn't gonna share this story, but I decided to share it first service, so I'll share it with you guys. About a month ago, I found out that my son Josh and my daughter-in-law Des, who live in another part of Ohio, and my two grandsons, Kelly and Theo, had a neighbor move in. And this neighbor, it's kind of crazy. And over and over, and I'd found this out, that this neighbor, a young man in his 20s, would come out and scream at my son. And then I found out that he screamed at my daughter, said a bunch of terrible words for no reason to her, and then screamed at my grandson when they were on the front porch of their house. He lives just right across the street. And when I heard this, it disturbed me greatly. And so we were at their house about a week and a half ago, and I knew this had happened. And so when everybody was inside, I walked out on the front porch, and apparently what bothers this young man the most across the street is when people stare at his house. And being a good, loving Christian man, I went out and stood on the deck, and I just stared at his house like this for about 5 minutes. And I just stared like this. Sure enough, after about 5 minutes, he must have noticed, because from inside the house, I heard screaming at me. Well, that's brave. And I thought, he's not coming out. Didn't he know about me? That's what I thought. I'm serious, that's what I thought. And he came out the front door, and I just stared at him. And then he came across the street and screamed at me and said, some terrible things. And I didn't say a word, but here's what I was thinking. I just want to jump down off this porch and pull your head off your shoulders. That's what I thought. And part of it was because I was worried about my son and my daughter and my grandkids. So be fair. But much of that is because you have insulted me. And do you know what happens to people that insult guys like me? Do you know what happens? And I've been thinking about it ever since, because I had this dual thought in my head. Is one, I wonder what would happen if men, we get this, if I was back in that scene, I just did this and all this stuff. Then the other thought, especially thinking about it this morning, was, he is somebody's son. He's somebody's grandson. He is somebody that Jesus died on the cross for. And I've had these two conflicting thoughts in my head over and over. And one is the script that I grew up with, and the other is the new script of he belongs, or the intention is Jesus would want him to belong to the kingdom of God. And I didn't tell everybody what happened. He went back inside, I went back inside, nothing happened. It would have been awesome. I could have told you I jumped off the porch, but I would have broke my hip if I'd have done that. So no jumping off the porch. But I've just struggled with that thought because that's what's in me. And then I thought about this idea about Jesus being the lion and the lamb. Leave this up here, the lion and the lamb. And these are my marching orders. And I tried to pull that apart just a little bit. The lion says, if he would try and hurt one of my grandkids, I wouldn't let him do that. The lamb says, I don't need vengeance. I don't need to be boisterous. I don't need to make a big deal about how powerful I am and how powerful he's not in comparison. I can be the lion that protects my family, and I can be the lamb that doesn't have to win just to win. I think this is the crossroads. Break it down a little more simply, not beating up your neighbors. So that's my bad illustration for today. But you know what a lion does if you're a dad? The lion says, I have enough strength to look at my sons and my daughters and say, hey, Dad loves you. Dad loves you. But it's hard. I know lions do hard things. Dad loves you. I don't have the right words. I know lions do hard things. And the lamb brings your heart along with it. You know what the lamb does? Will you forgive Dad? You're 10 years old. Will you forgive Dad? I shouldn't have yelled at you. That's what the lamb does. And when you're 25 and you're about to get married, will you forgive Dad for all the times he didn't do what he should have done and all the times he missed and when he, lost his mind, all the dumb things? Will you forgive Dad? That's what lambs do. That's what lions do. Lions protect their families. Lambs are gentle with their families. Lions wrestle with their sons, and maybe they're but wrestles with their sons. And then lambs hug their sons. See, the lion and the lamb is the perfect picture of masculinity, but it's never about bravado. It's always about, I'm gonna lay down my life for the people that I love. And in that moment, we get to act like Superman. And it's not that we're all the same. Men, listen, we're not all gonna be the same. We just get to be better because of Jesus and follow a better path. And the invitation as husbands and dads and men in our world is to follow Jesus. And I'm gonna tell you exactly how to do that. But you gotta show up next week for Father's Day. And we're gonna finish this discussion up of how to be the lion and the lamb that Jesus created us to be. And remember, men, when you don't get this right, if you feel like you can't do this, he gave his life on the cross for you so you could have the better, best life, the only life that there's life in, and that's following him. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, I'm so grateful just for me to be reminded of this powerful idea that Jesus, you are the lion, but you're also the lamb. You're fearless, but you were also the one that refused you for us. Help us as men to follow you in every part of our lives this way. Thank you for your immense love and care for us, and help us to do this better with your strength and your guidance. We love you, Jesus. It's in your precious name I pray. Amen.